Brandi, joined by Bruce and Sarah, and this is Live from the Edge. Welcome to Live from the Edge, episode 2. Tonight we're going to be talking about episode 3 of Discovery. Context is for Kings. So everybody say hi. Bruce, say hi.
Hi, welcome to Live on the Edge. I mean, Live on the Edge.
That too.
It could be Live on the Edge because we're living on the edge when we're doing this live.
We really, really are. We're just clinging by the seat of our pants. No, that's not the right thing. You know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. So,
Steven
and of course,
Tyler's really proud of you guys right now.
Oh, that means so much to me. My life is now complete. I can die happy. And that was our guest host this week, the lovely Sarah Buck. Say hello, Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so glad you're joining us because I haven't talked to you since The Edge, 3? It's been a while, girl.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, we had one and your power went out and it was really exciting.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, Transformer literally blew like on my block and everything was dead for hours, which was really fun because it was really hot. And so that wasn't my favorite thing ever. But I honestly didn't just suddenly duck out of the conversation by any stretch of the imagination.
We were like, hello?
Yeah, I know. And it was so horrifying. And if it weren't for the beauty of smartphones, I wouldn't have even been able to get word to Mike saying what happened. So at least there was that. At least there was that. But you don't want to hear about that. You are here to hear what we thought of Star Trek Discovery episode 3. So if you want to tweet questions at us, we want you to use the hashtag #LiveTheEdge for Twitter. And you can also, of course, post comments on the YouTube page. We're trying very hard to monitor both of those, so be good. And anyway, hold on just a moment. As I'm...
What are you doing?
I am realizing that I didn't start something the way that I was supposed to.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So, yeah, that is entirely my fault. Want to be starting something. Want to be starting something. Okay. See, I told you I was going to get silly, Bruce, and you didn't believe me. You didn't believe it would be bad. Okay. So, episode 3. Context is for Kings. Shall we start with basically our opening scene where we see things happen, basically recap of the first 2 episodes, and then all of a sudden it's 6 months later. Quite a jump.
It was quite a jump, I think. I was a little bit surprised at how far forward it jumped at first.
Yeah, I wasn't really, because I thought they're not going to show us her going to prison and all of this stuff. And we got to find some way to get her on the Discovery. So I wasn't really shocked. I thought it would have probably been more time, maybe a year, but 6 months was good. And she's on a shuttlecraft with 3 other prisoners and
that we will never see again.
Never see again. Never. They had a lot of dialogue for people we'll never see again.
They did. They were talkative.
Yeah. And we have no idea what they did, but apparently whatever they did, they thought Michael was way worse. So they were rude and disrespectful. And I love the way she just stared at them. Just that blank look like, I don't care what you think of me. So
yeah, well, even when the ship was in danger, she just sat there like that, almost like, I don't care if I die.
Actually, I feel like she had a look on her face of, so this is how it ends.
Yeah.
And that's, and she was just basically resigned. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And this is my feeling, and this is going to sound kind of weird. And this treatment exists throughout a lot of the episode is, yes, those people were criminals. They had done things wrong and they were serving their sentence for them. That doesn't mean they deserve to be called animals or garbage. And for people to say things like that straight to their face, especially the things that were said to Michael, I'm just like, okay, well, it's a good thing that she doesn't care, or you'd all be dead right now. Because we have that lovely fight in the, what do we call that? The mess hall, the commissary.
The mess hall.
Yeah.
And you notice that the older guy, the bald guy, he didn't jump in on that. He's just like, nope.
Yeah.
I am not even going to try. So.
You know what I noticed about the mess hall? Two things about that scene. One is the fight reminded me of something you'd see out of like Battlestar Galactica, the newer version, not the older version.
I mentioned that when I was watching it, like, oh my God, Battlestar Galactica. But
yeah, see? Yeah. And then the chairs that they were on were similar to the chairs you saw on the original series Enterprise in the mess hall.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that as well, because I thought, yeah, this is reminiscent of the NX-01, and that was fine with me. So let's just talk a little bit about up to that point, about Michael getting in the fight and then being taken to the bridge. So how do we feel about how she's being treated? Does she deserve all of this hatred? Does she deserve being the sole bearer of the start of the Klingon War?
I don't think it's a question of deserve as much as the kind of attitude that they're wanting people to display towards her is really in line with that whole vision of, well, this is, Starfleet before, it's not a post-racism thing anymore. They decided they were going to break that rule about, no, this is not post-racism and sexism and all that kind of thing. And I thought that was a really good way to kind of put it back into, because we do see a lot of that kind of at least written narrative in things about like the army type movies and shows that we know now, because we do know that humans have all that kind of prejudice and all that kind of anger and stuff in our world. So I thought it was a cool way to, sad because they were real mean, but also they're really coming out the gates with that, like, look, this is Starfleet still trying to figure out what Starfleet is.
Right.
Yeah, that's why this is such a perfect time frame for this show to take place, because this would not work as well in the 24th century. Because when we get to the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, Starfleet's supposed to really be perfect at this point. All the officers are supposed to be perfect and not be prejudiced and stuff. But in the 23rd century, we're still on that fine line of some of us are there and some of us aren't there. And so I didn't like the way the crew was treating her, because I thought that doesn't feel very Starfleet like. But at the same time, I thought, but more in the 23rd century, they're not as perfect as they are in the 24th century. So this would not have worked on the Enterprise D. They all would have been like, I know that you got yourself in trouble and you did something wrong, but we're still here for you. But in the 23rd century, no.
Yeah, no. And one scene, it was just like really brief that like gave me chills, was when they're all being walked down the corridor and they pass that like black booted, like jack booted, like black outfit with the military looking cops with the black Starfleet badge. And I was like, ooh, I haven't seen that before. It's very ominous, very foreboding, very dangerous seeming. It just immediately gave you that sense of like, oh, there's some weird stuff going on with Starfleet right now. For sure.
There is. And the thing is that as the episode progresses, I think we find more that Discovery is not a typical Starfleet ship. And they're demonstrating that just by that walk down the hall to the commissary, mess hall, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, just, you know, they're looking at things and saying, why is this here? Why do they have this? And then they're silenced, you know, eyes ahead, mouths closed, etc. But that was our first glimpse at things are not normal here. Right. So anyway.
Things aren't normal here either.
No, so, no, I'm not normal and I'm proud of it. So normal's boring. But
well, you know, real quick, in the live chat on YouTube, Brian says several on Voyager gave Paris a cold shoulder when he first arrived, although not to the same extent. That's true. Remember on the first episode of Caretaker, people weren't very receptive to Tom Paris when he came on board.
This is true. I had forgotten that because my brain is just full of Discovery right now. That's all this has room for at the moment. But yeah, I agree with that. There was a cold shoulder, but there wasn't like verbal abuse directed right at his face. At least there wasn't that. So, but still, we expect more from our Starfleet officers, I think. So anyway, she makes it to the bridge, and who is on the bridge, in command of the bridge at the moment? It's Commander Saru.
Yes, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just to see him sitting there made it look like he was the captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we all knew that he wasn't the captain. But and we knew we would see him again, but we just didn't know in what capacity. So yeah, he's been promoted to first officer, commander, and even with all of that that makeup on his face, Doug Jones is still really good at emoting without saying a word.
He's amazing. Yeah, it was a very intense moment, like between the two of them. They're both really good actors and can really communicate feelings without saying a word. So it was like a silent moment, but it was a very intense moment.
Indeed. And and there's another crew member that we saw in the first two episodes, Kayla. And she looks a little worse for wear. I'm not sure she looked like she had a Borg implant to me. I'm sure it wasn't a Borg implant.
Yeah, what's up with that? Because she didn't have that on the Shenzhou.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's an injury. It's probably an injury, and it's something that has permanently affected her, and whatever is on her head is mitigating the effects. I'm not sure. I'm sure we will find out. But for now, all we know is that she was not happy to see Michael at.
She was not at all.
Nope. That was awkward.
So we have another comment. Nick Anastasio says, Riker was a big jerk to Ro when she first came on board on TNG. Same with Paris when he first joined the Voyager. So, yeah, you know what? I guess maybe 24th century officers aren't perfect either. But I think, like Sarah, you were saying, maybe, you know, not quite as rude as the 23rd century officers on this.
I mean, and you can make a lot of arguments, too, about, like, Deep Space Nine having a lot of really sexist characters who are not very safe towards women, but you know, like that's one of the reasons I was really excited to see this new take on Starfleet, because as post racist and as post sexist as all versions of Star Trek have really tried to be, the problem is they're just not, because they're written by us, and inherently that is what our world is dealing with. So there's a lot of times you could argue that 24th century is pretty crappy too. So
yeah, it's an imperfect world, and I guess I've watched too much Orange is the New Black. Actually, I haven't watched that much. My husband watches it. But I've seen enough scenes that I'm just like, you know, whatever they did, these are still human beings, for heaven's sake. And just no, that's not okay. So, yeah. So I think we have a tweet about the prisoners.
We do, from Scott Fairbanks. He says that prisoners were allowed in the mess hall in the first place felt weird, but the sequence felt a bit off intentionally.
Yes, I agree. And I think that it was all part of Lorca's plan. I think that entire encounter was orchestrated. Not that the people attacked her because of Lorca, but he knew what was going to happen. He's one of those people. He's a lot like Michael. He sees, and that's probably why he wants her so much, is because he sees himself in her, because she has predictive reasoning. And that's what I think, honestly, that's what he did. He had predictive reasoning. He's like, if I put her in this public place with these people, let's see what happens, because they already hate her. So let's see what happens. And she proved that she can hold her own. So, which was awesome.
I think, it was weird to see prisoners in the mess hall, but at the same time, I think that was a little nod to, like, it's this weird balance between we're Starfleet and we need to be better than Earth was centuries ago, but we still fall into these traps. But we call these prisoners guests for now because their transport was in danger and we saved them. And, let's be Starfleet and pretend to have our, stuff in order enough to treat them like people, while at the same time are what was that the lady who called them garbage? Do you guys remember what her name is?
I'll find out.
Yeah, because she was an interesting character.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
Yeah, well, that's actually not surprising, because we aren't given a lot of time with her being called by her name. So that doesn't really surprise me. However, another thing that makes me think that that whole thing was orchestrated by Lorca was the fact that when the fight starts, one of the security officers starts to get up and pull his phaser, and she keeps him from getting up.
She does, yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting. Commander Landry.
Landry, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because she's chief of security.
Duh, I had that written here and I didn't even look.
Why take notes? Notes are for suckers.
Yeah, notes are for beginners, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I actually took notes on the first and second episodes, none of which I actually used during the first live broadcast. So I thought, we're okay. So now we finally are going to meet Lorca. So we go into what I'm guessing is his ready room, and there he is standing facing the windows, and it's kind of dark.
There's a tribble on his desk.
There's a tribble trilling at him, because I didn't see the tribble at first because of my streaming issues, but I heard it and I'm like, that's a tribble.
It was a tribble.
A tribble?
Yes.
Why does he have a tribble?
I don't know. I felt that was a little. I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with it, but it's like tribbles keep popping up in things lately.
Well,
Oh, go ahead. Sarah.
No, you go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I at first was like, he's got a tribble and he's definitely not worried about it reproducing. And then, later on in the episode, we do find out that this guy likes to experiment with creatures.
Yes.
Him and Landry go into that back room. So, because I saw he's not worried about it reproducing, so it must be somehow genetically modified or have been experimented on enough to stop it from creating a new episode of Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah.
The third episode, because there was the one in the original series and then the animated series, and So, and to me, that brought the tribble full circle, is that, this guy likes his pets.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, is that he doesn't have all of the pets in his ready room. He just has the tribble. So there's something about it he specifically likes. Maybe it's the cooing sound that it makes. Maybe it's his only friend. We just don't know. Because it doesn't seem to me like Lorca is the kind of man who has friends. He has colleagues. He has peers. But he doesn't have friends. He's bigger than that. He's working towards something else. So, yeah. I want to go into Lorca more, but I think we need to talk about the rest of the episode before we do that, because that puts some more context into it. Do you agree?
I agree.
Yeah, I'm just wondering though if Lorca created Tribbles. Ooh.
Oh, who knew? Who knew? Lorca, the creator of Tribbles. Who knows? That may be true. That would be silly, but it could be true. No, I don't think that they would go that silly route.
By the way, the whole mess hall thing, Renee in Twitter says, indeed, especially with the security chief allowing them to duke it. Seems like it's all part of Michael's audition in retrospect.
Yeah.
Well, I actually thought that in the first place when I was first seeing that scene. Because even though we hadn't met Lorca yet, I just thought it's rather convenient that this ship just happens to rescue this shuttle at this particular time. And then, of course, we find out later when Michael asks, "What am I doing here?" Because she talks about how she didn't receive notice of being transferred to a new facility, which is customary, and that the shuttle changed course in the middle of their journey, etc. And then all of a sudden now she's here. And she's already starting to suspect she's been brought there, but she doesn't know why. So let's talk about why. Okay, first of all, I have to talk about Lieutenant Stamets because I keep wanting to call him Stannis Baratheon because Stamets and Stannis are very similar sounding, and I'm really sorry. So if I accidentally say Stannis, that's why. Mostly I just call him Guy who thinks he's Alan Tudyk. So he really has Alan Tudyk.
He can't help resembling him.
No. It's not the physical appearance alone. It's certain facial expressions. It's certain body movements. It's like they're related, but they're not that I know of. No. But yeah,
quick Google it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah, before we even get to Stamets, of course, we are introduced to Tilly, who is now Michael's roommate.
Oh my God, I love her.
Everybody seems to love her, and that brings me so much happiness because I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh my God, it's me when I was 12. This is me at age 12, except not as intelligent because I was 12. But yeah.
She's darling. She was so enjoyable.
She really, really is. And she's obviously incapable of keeping up a lie.
Yeah.
So that was entertaining when she says, we have assigned workstations, and then she's proven wrong and she doesn't say anything. And honestly, if that were me in that position and I had done that and then been shown that I was lying, my face would have been flame red because of that fair skin. But Hollywood makeup, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty thick stuff. But yeah, no, she was, and the actor who plays her, like her comedic timing was on point for all of those moments. They were very funny, and just a really fun character, which is great because this show seems to have a lot of gravity to it. And so I was happy to see that there is a character in it who is incredibly like comedic and lighthearted.
Yeah, because that whole episode at that point was so serious. And then when she was introduced, it was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And she's talking about, she's allergic to polyester and all these things. And, I heard of another woman who had the name Michael. That's so weird that she's, the one who did Mutiny. Oh, wait, you're not her, are you? Are you?
Are you?
Yeah. My husband laughed out loud at that part.
Yep.
Because it was just really well timed.
It was. She is excellent. The actress's name is Mary Wiseman, and she has not been active for very long. Her earliest IMDb credit is 2012. So she's a relative newcomer, and what a place to really hit your stride. Because I haven't seen any negative comments about her. Of course, I haven't been looking for any, but of all the people that I have seen comments from, everyone was really positive about her character. So we're looking forward to seeing more from Tilly.
Yeah, and the comedy between her and Michael really kind of reminded me of the kind of Geordi and Data dynamic. So it was kind of cool.
Yep. That was fun. So anyway, back to Stamets. good old Stamets. And we find out that he's not really Starfleet. He's a scientist. And we, basically he makes this whole speech later about their science that he and his friend have been working on being co-opted by the Starfleet, because now we're at war with the Klingons, and they've been working 12 years together, and now they've been split up. And so his friend is on the sister ship, and they're talking via a holographic thingy again, sort of holographic view screen, not a full hologram this time, but yeah. And his friend is talking about stuff that we don't understand yet, because we have no idea what they're doing. And so a lot of that, it's interesting to rewatch it, because I did, and know what's coming when he's saying all of those things. And I'm just like, oh, no, don't do that, Tess. Don't do that. Just don't. It's going to be like Silent Hill meets Dead Space. You just don't want to do that. And yet, it happens.
Yeah, they really telegraphed a lot of like, this is not a good idea, and you like had a feeling in your gut when they were talking, like, oh no. So
yeah. Well, they're being pressed to get results, basically, and so but they have been working on this for a long time. And anyway, sister ship goes dark, and they get sent over there. I know I'm skipping a bit, but if I don't skip some stuff as far as plot, we will be running long, because we could talk about this forever. So I have to say that them going over to the other ship, what was it called again?
The Glenn, USS Glenn.
USS Glenn. I knew it was a G, and it just slipped out of my mind for some reason. So they go over to the USS Glenn, and I'm a fan of survival horror video games and horror movies. And when you just see the ship just floating dead in space, I went,
yeah.
And my husband's like, oh. So we were both just like, what are they going to see? Is it going to be awful? And so they get on board, and they start finding bodies. And as they're not showing us really good images of the bodies, just kind of hints of it, because that's where the mature rating came from.
Yeah.
Was those things right there. In fact, my husband said that. He's like, well, there's your mature rating. And I said, yep. And the only one we get a really good look at is his friend.
Oh.
And that was one of those things where if you don't know what you're looking at, it's horrifying either way. But if you don't know what you're looking at, it's somehow less horrifying. But when you realize, oh no, that was a person, that was an actual human being,
that was a face. Yeah. It's Cronenberg level. I was so surprised. I was like, oh my god, like when you first saw one of the bodies, like I was like, oh my goodness, like out loud, because like I was not expecting that from Star Trek. I mean, I'm not like mad at it or disappointed by it. The effects and everything were really impressive. Like it's really, that's some horror magic right there. But like I was surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, that is gory.
How did you feel about it, Bruce?
I thought it was gory, but I kept looking like, wait, what is that? And I kept like tilting my head, like, dogs do. Like, just trying to make out what the heck I'm looking at. And then I watched it a second time, and I was like, I think that's a face. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it was at one point.
It was one day. And that's where, for me, the whole Silent Hill thing comes in. Video games, not the movie. Because through every one of those video games, 1, 2, and 3, because there is no 4, that wasn't Silent Hill.
I wouldn't know.
Long story. They're terrifying. They're super atmospheric and terrifying. And there are so many things that you're like, what is that? What is that? I don't know what that is. And I don't think I want to know, but now I'm going to have to go near it to do this thing that I have to do to progress in the game. And so it made me remember that feeling of, oh oh no, this is not right. This is not right at all. And Stamets even says, you know, he didn't expect this kind of reaction to happen. That was something he hadn't thought of. So they obviously were not expecting this to go horribly, horribly wrong.
No, but you know what? When they get on there and they see those bodies and then they see the Klingon bodies, my first thought is, if I were on the ship, I'd be like, oh, okay, there's something worse going on here than we expected. We need to get off the ship now and figure out what we need to do next. But instead, they're just like, let's keep looking. Let's keep wandering around. And I'm like, you need to get off that ship.
Yeah, that would be probably the logical thing that most people do, but they were sent there for a specific purpose, and they were obeying the orders to fulfill that purpose. And
They just didn't seem as scared as I thought they would be, especially Tilly. She's a cadet, you know. I think she'd be like, oh my gosh, but she seemed like really cool, and maybe that's what's great about her. I don't know, but
yeah,
I just expect them to have a little more fear.
Well, if you'd come at her with a polyester sweater, maybe she would have had more fear. But, you know, I think it was more of they didn't know what to be afraid of yet because they didn't know yet what had happened.
But isn't that the thing you're most afraid of, is the unknown?
Well, he was testing them, having her test them for residue from like explosions, because there were markings on the hull, and his theory was that the fuel had blown out through the hull of the ship, and therefore, like, he was like, oh, scan it. He said to Tilly, like, scan it, see if there's any of that biological residue, which turns out to be the same biofuel they're working on at their lab. Like, check it to see if there's them. And she's like, well, there are traces. So at that point, I think they were still working on the explosion theory. And like, it was a grody explosion. Like, very, very strange way for bodies to behave. But then again, they are not crime scene investigators. They are scientists. So,
well, and crime scene investigators often get things wrong too. I watched a whole thing about that today. Anyway, I think one of my favorite moments, this is going to sound so weird, was actually after they've past the Klingon bodies and they're going down that hall, and there's the lift doors that are trying to shut on that severed leg. And then something moves and they're like, oh. And Tilly's just like, you in the shadows, come out. And it's a Klingon, and he shushes them. Apparently, this is a universal thing. Or they probably know enough about humans to just be like, shh. Too little, too late. And he got by the big, what do you want to call it?
I call it the kitty.
The kitty. Yes, here, kitty. So yeah, the kitty. So they have to, and Michael says the sensible thing, which is run. That's one of those things where you're just like, what am I looking at? And you have to be told, oh yes, you're in mortal danger. How about running? So they finally take off, get into engineering, and that's when Stamets finds his friend. And that was when
sad moment.
Yeah, that was when we get a really good, well, not the best look at a body, but a pretty good look at a body. And
Amy Nelson says in the chat, don't get me started with the sliding doors. Didn't like that part.
I freaking loved it because
it was a very cute little horror trope that I appreciated.
Me too. I'm just like, oh, you're trying to scare me. I love you. This is so cute. So I just, there are still things that creep me out. And when something can creep me out, and there were, this whole sequence did creep me out, I get excited because I feel so desensitized and jaded to those sort of things. So that when something affects me like that, I go,
yeah.
Yes.
It was very well done.
Timothy Appleby says in Twitter, when that scene happened, I thought, what the hell? Pretty gruesome, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to know I'm not alone in my reaction. Like whoa.
Yeah. Well, and for whatever reason, I wasn't surprised. I felt like, this is the direction I think they were going. So it didn't surprise me that there was this horrible thing that they were showing us. especially when he gets the message that the ship has gone dark and it's expected that all hands have been lost. And I thought, oh, and they're going to go over to that ship and something bad is there. So it didn't really, that whole thing didn't surprise me except in the fact that it made me creeped out. So I was excited about that. So it may have been too much for some people. I certainly understand that, but obviously there's your MA rating.
Yeah.
It happens. Not usually in Star Trek though. I mean, they have pushed that envelope in other series, but not to that extent.
I think it's an exciting development. I think that it's a good decision as far as this series is concerned, because it is about probably the most, one of the more graphic contents you can use in a storyline, which is war. And, war that is fueled by, quite a bit of mutual hatred on both sides. So I think it's a good decision for this series, because they are pushing into this kind of darker, more devastating territory that we really haven't seen on this scale yet in Star Trek. So
agreed. And I felt like it was going to be a darker series anyway, but I wasn't sure until this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Michael basically says, "What is going on?" And they're just like, "Duh, get the logs. We got to get out of there." And that thing's trying to break through the door, which is, of course, that's what you want to do. And they can't get out the other door because it's sealed shut. And so Landry's trying to open that with a phaser, and that thing's going to break through. And so Michael says, "Give me a phaser," and they're like, "Nah." And she's like, I'm gonna she doesn't even say it. She's like, "I'm gonna take care of this, okay? You guys need time." And so they finally throw her a phaser, and when she's aiming at it, and Tilly's like, "You're not gonna kill it." She's like, "I'm not trying to kill it. I'm trying to make it angry."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she does. She was bait.
Mm-hmm.
Because
she made herself bait. Yeah.
Yep.
She was bait that can recite Alice in Wonderland,
which is great. I'm actually more of a fan of Through the Looking Glass myself, but any Alice references I'm always good with. And I think that it was also a way to keep herself focused and to shove the fear down.
Yeah.
Because any rational person, even a Vulcan, would have been scared in that situation.
I thought I was going to think that sequence in particular was more cheesy, but I really thought it worked. Like first, like normally I'd be like, oh, now she's reciting, book passage from Alice in Wonderland. But I was like, oh no, this really works for the sequence and for Michael's character for some reason. So
yeah, it did.
I liked it. I always like it when Star Trek characters recite plays or literature or such, and so it was kind of cool to see this.
Yeah, it was a really good use of that kind of trope that they've established over a long period of time. So
yeah, now watch the Klingons later say that they wrote that, because they wrote Shakespeare.
Oh no.
Yeah, because
you haven't really appreciated Alice in Wonderland until you
read it in the original Klingon. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure somebody's going to translate it now. Anyway, so yeah, Michael is correct in her assumption that most most Starfleet ships are basically the same structurally, and so she manages to lure the kitty, but just in time for her to fall down and land back in the shuttle. She tells them exactly where she is, open the top hatch, because she knows she's right over the shuttle bay. And, she just jumps down there and right into the shuttle. And Dave said, "Oh, look, she's landing with an action pose." And I said, "She jumped from a long height. Of course you're going to bend your knees and land in a crouch." And he had to give me that one.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see what that object was that they picked up Tilly and
the one that they had to disconnect.
Yeah, she was like, this thing's on it, and he's like, bring it with us, you know. And I'm like, I'm really curious to see what that ends up being, because they really were very careful to specifically mention that and highlight it being found and taken, but they did not explore that later in that episode. So I'm like, wonder what that's gonna be.
Yes, I am curious about that as well, because I remembered that from that episode the first time I watched it, but the second time I watched it, I'm like, oh yeah, there was that thing, and we didn't find out more about that. I want to know what it is.
A cappuccino machine or something, right? Like
the prop department ran out of money. Yeah.
Okay. It was basically a milk steamer.
They had to sacrifice the cappuccino machine.
Well, it seemed like it was something that was kind of cobbled together, so I don't know. We'll find out, I suppose. Long story short, too late. They get back to the Discovery, and Michael basically is told by Saru that the shuttle for the prison is leaving in an hour, and she says she'll be on it. And then she's brought to talk to Lorca again. And this is when Lorca starts to talk about some of the things that are going on. He doesn't get super specific about a lot of it. But I've heard some people have compared Lorca to Ahab. And I actually disagree with that, because Ahab was obsessed with the whale that took his leg. And to my knowledge, I don't know yet of anything that the Klingons may have personally done to Lorca. But whatever his motivation is, if it truly is just ending the war, he is fully committed to it. And he will do anything. Because it's kind of like Section 31, how they will do the stuff that nobody else in Starfleet knows about or would want to do. That's what Discovery is doing.
Yeah. I thought that Lorca, especially by the end of the episode, to me felt sort of like, obviously not like this far, but maybe we don't know yet. Like the Goebbels of Starfleet, just clearly, like he's not someone who was really conscripted, because he's the captain of a science vessel. So not a military vessel per se, and he's working on these weapons and all this discrete science missions to end the war. And, that was, it's kind of that same, he's serving in that same capacity. He's head scientist. He's been given free reign from Starfleet. Do whatever you need to, just win the war. Well, a lot of weird experimentation and exploitation can be done under the umbrella of this is, how we win. And so to me, he definitely gave off that vibe, and his whole his Lucius Malfoy. So he's got that very insidious, powerful, feel to him as an actor. So,
which is so funny, because he has been to Salt Lake Comic-Con, and the real Jason Isaacs is just this teddy bear. He's like the sweetest, funniest man. He's like, I don't understand why you guys want me to play these roles. At heart, I'm just a neurotic Jew. So those were his words. His words. Okay, I'm not making any kind of racial statement. Those were his words in the panel at Salt Lake Comic-Con, which is one of my favorite panels ever, because he was just absolutely delightful. He was one of those people that didn't bother with a moderator. He just came out and started talking. And I could have listened to his stories all day.
He did that at Dragon Con last year before we knew he was going to be on Discovery. And I actually was his opening act.
Ooh.
And then he came out and he said, oh, I never had an introduction like that or something like that before. And then you're right. No moderator. He just talked for like an hour.
Yeah.
And then later I learned out he was going to be on Discovery. I'm like, oh, yay. I met a future captain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been a Jason Isaacs fan for 20 years. So I'll watch anything he's in, really. He's just one of those people who can make you forget he's who he is, because he's just really good at making me believe he's whoever he's playing.
Yes.
So I don't think they could have gotten anyone better to play Lorca, because there's so much ambiguity right now. We don't really know enough about him, but my personal feeling is he's also a predictive reasoner, and everything that he is doing is according to some sort of plan that's in his head.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't think he's insane, and I don't think he's necessarily obsessed in the way that Ahab was.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what he is yet.
No. Well, there's several predictions out there. So on Twitter, Timothy Appleby says that he thinks maybe he's sort of Section 31.
We're thinking along the same lines. In fact, my husband and I were talking about this whole thing. He's like, well, obviously these experiments are going to fail because, of the future continuity. And I said, we don't necessarily know that they failed, but Section 31 probably came in and basically erased all of this from any kind of record that there was. So it wasn't the first time that I thought about Section 31, because I thought, yeah, this whole ship's basically a big Section 31 to me.
Well, the registry number is 1031.
I hadn't thought of that. Good one, Bruce. Good one. I hadn't thought of that.
Maybe it's a clue.
Could be. I mean, they were leaving a lot of Easter eggs in this series, which, I think is really fun. They're doing it in a classy way. So like, it's a good touch, like in the Michael's former captain's ready room. She had all these books on her shelves that were, if you paused it, you could zoom in and see the titles of the old series and stuff. And so they are kind of leaving a lot of hints and fan service in these episodes.
Yeah. And the thing is that to me, it's not really super overt. How do I put this? I think it's more subtle, I guess. It's not so in my face, because the first time I watched Star Wars The Force Awakens, I felt like in every scene, somebody put something in there that was shouting at me, remember this? Remember this from the old Star Wars? You remember this? You saw this, right? Remember this? And so it's kind of like, Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the movie. I didn't think I would, because I don't care for J.J. Abrams' work. Like the guy, just fine. Don't care for his work. But now there's one movie that I like. So, but that was the kind of feeling that I got from that. But I have never felt that way about any of the things that they have put in there for the fans so far in Discovery. It's
done in a very classy way, I would say.
Yeah, classy is a good word for it.
Yeah.
Classy. Classy and subtle.
Classy, like you, of course, like all of us.
Yes, we're
such classy people.
So classy.
We are.
Tell me about it. So we have a tweet from Rebecca Skipper who says, Lorca reminds me of Janeway and Cisco. He mentors, but he is also unconventional. Who is he? Very mysterious.
Yes, that's what I like. I like a bit of mystery. So I will look forward to learning more about him, because, I mean, even when he's being kind of a jerk, he's not, you still like him. You're still interested in him. You still want to know what makes him tick. It's not like Jellicoe, where you're just like, get away from me. You're such a dork. I don't, close your mouth. Close your mouth. Just no more. No more
that
talking.
Almost like sting moment, though, with him and Landry at the end, and Kitty, like that, though, I'm like, ooh, there's, you know, something insidious going on here. Landry's his kill switch. She's doing the footwork, but they have a plan, and we don't know yet. It could be maybe it's completely harmless, but who knows?
We don't.
By the way, we named Kitty in the live chat. It's Mere Spot. Data Spot. It's Mere Spot, and Brian even says Wibbly Wobbly.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. This is not Doctor Who. We don't talk about wibbly wobbly, timey wimey here.
Mirror Spot. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I just watched that episode where Spot destroys Geordie's room because he was borrowing her, and he suggests to Data that he should just stun his cat. So
That's not nice.
I know.
Well,
Poor
you
Spot.
know, yeah, and Spot was a boy in the beginning. Anyway, yeah, Spot changed gender during the run of Star Trek Next Generation.
I just figured he got a different spot.
It's possible. It is quite possible because,
or maybe Lorca came to the future and did some experiments on Spot.
Change.
Or the actors just forgot it was a he, and they're like, we're not gonna reshoot these.
Or Data thought it was a he, and then he got pregnant, and Data's like, "Oh, I was wrong."
Mike, I had a friend who had a cat for like a year, and they thought it was a he, and they named it Howard Moon, and it turned out to be a she. So, you know,
that's okay. Michael Burnham is a boy's name.
Yes, and when she was born, they thought she was a boy and named her Michael, and then realized later she was a girl. I don't know. I'm stretching it.
No, Brian Fuller likes to name female characters after men.
That's true.
That's what he does.
But I wish they didn't call that on the show. I just want it to be a natural thing. Like, yeah, her name's Michael, and not like everybody, like Tilly's like, oh my gosh, you have a man's name. I kind of want it to be like, oh, it's common in the future.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting pretty common at this point. Like, as a parent of an elementary schooler, there are a lot of like names people are taking as gender neutral these days. So
yeah. One thing I will say about Mirror Spot was that when Lorca asked Landry if, you know, basically if the transport had gone well, I thought, oh, I know what he did. So I was totally unsurprised to see Mirror Spot at the end. Anyone else unsurprised? I think
I was not surprised.
Yeah. We kind of sensed that coming because, like, Lorca's going to leave that behind. He's going to find out everything he can about that organism and find out why what happened, and possibly how to reproduce it.
Well, and what I thought was that since they were on the ship and they scanned the victims of Mirror Spot, and it did have residue of those spores on it, I believe that this this Mirror Spot here is some sort of product of that same biological research. Biology as physics, just maybe this is what happens when you try to weaponize it. I think Lorca knows exactly what that creature is, and I think he was behind its manufacturing because it clearly has some of the same genetic traits as the spores they're using as fuel. Otherwise, the engineers wouldn't have been tricked into thinking the bodies were perhaps the result of an explosion at first. So
that's possible. That's certainly possible. Or he was working towards this end, but he didn't know what the result would be because he's not directly over that ship. He's not over the Glen. So though he may have been in communication with them, I don't know if he knew how close they were to doing this particular test. So Stamets did. Whether he reported that to Lorca, I don't know. I just don't know yet. But I do know that he believes he knows exactly what he's doing. And he has information the rest of us don't have. And so I can't make assumptions of what he's going to do next because I just want to wait and see.
Yeah.
So, and then of course we have the, oh golly, the spores basically shooting Michael throughout the universe to different places and or times. I wasn't really sure about the time thing, but it kind of seemed like it was also a time thing, possibly. Did you guys get that feeling?
All like real time. I didn't think it was.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's just real because they said that something about it spreading throughout the galaxy and having like just oceans and of it basically, and being able to just be somewhere instantly. So I think it's all real time. Just you can go anywhere in an instant.
So it was cool, all the different places, because we recognized a lot of them.
Yes.
The obelisk, and you know, she was on Romulus, and we were on Starbase 11 from the Menagerie. There were several places.
Yeah, it was. I have to watch that scene again and like slow it down or pause it in certain, so I can really get a good look at every single place that she goes. And so, but it's kind of that finally wins her over to staying on the Discovery. And I will say this though, and I meant to mention this earlier, though Saru got his digs in as far as Michael, especially about he will protect his captain better than she did hers. He still treated her with respect. He did not treat her like garbage or like an animal. He spoke to her like a human being.
I think that Saru is the one genuinely pure-hearted character in the show. Clearly, we've seen Michael is at conflict with her human nature and her Vulcan nature, which, as we've seen in Spock throughout the years, is never a fun combination to go through. You know, and Tilly too could be, but Saru definitely has that kind of goodness to him. And I think that's going to be really interesting later on if he does have to make a decision between Michael and his captain again, because he's been in that situation and the first time it did not turn out well. But is Lorca insidious? Who knows?
I don't know yet. I'm reserving judgment on that. I think that Saru is one of those rare creatures that is without guile. He just doesn't lie. He doesn't see any point in it. And so you pretty much know where you stand at all times with that guy. So, which is a rare thing.
Well, he has no ability to hide his emotions because they manifest themselves physically on his head. So
yes, that was a nice little touch when
his little fins start coming out. Yeah. So, you know, like he's someone who can't hide strong emotions. So he's like, whatever, I'm just going to tell you what I think because you'll be able to see it anyways.
And that's a valuable character to have on the Discovery, where there's a lot of secrecy going on. So much secrecy.
Well, could the spore travel be linked to the gateways like the Iconians? That's from Ron in the live chat.
Ooh, that's an interesting theory. I'm sure that is possible, because that would explain a great many things. Strokey beard, strokey beard. I like that theory. Let's see if it plays out. But it's certainly possible.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much on that because then I'll get disappointed if it's not.
Well, see, I'm just willing to go, sure, yeah. Okay, if that's how it is, great. And if not, okay.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard that theory. So there's a lot of similar, people are having very similar theories, which makes me think if we're all thinking the same things, it's not true.
I know, like that's always like a thing is like, is it going to? Because I had that whole like thing about Westworld, and I was like, oh, fan theories, but then a lot of them turned out to be true. And fan theories now, man, they mess with you. But
that's why I don't read them as a general rule. But
yeah.
Anyway, I think we are running out of time, so we need to wrap this up. Sarah, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
I thought it was a very exciting episode. I think that it really was a good place to start after the 2 premiere episodes. And it made me very excited to see what's coming next, because it definitely added weight and it added intrigue.
Bruce, what are your thoughts?
I actually like this episode better than the first two. I thought it was well edited, acted. It just seemed to flow better and feel like a regular. It just felt like an episode of Star Trek. The first two were very cinematic and kind of over the top, and I really enjoyed it. But this seemed a little more grounded, and it felt like we're really now getting into the series. So I'm really anxious to see what's coming up next. And yeah, it kept me on the edge of my seat.
I see what you did there. I really loved this episode. I liked it even more the second time that I watched it. And I loved the creepiness of going over to the Glen. I liked being introduced to Lorca. I liked seeing Saru again. There was just I can't even think of anything that I didn't like in this episode. So, but then I didn't really have anything that I didn't like in the first two episodes. Yeah. But this one was just like, okay, we've given you the background. Now we're off. The horses are out of the gate and it's a race to the finish line. And who will win? We just don't know. But yeah, so we appreciate everyone who has shared their thoughts with us, both on the YouTube chat and on Twitter. And just getting a little housekeeping stuff out of the way. We have Discovery coverage like you would not believe, guys. This is the rundown of our Discovery coverage throughout the week. So Live from the Edge, we air on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Will be released as a podcast the following day. So tomorrow morning, you will be hearing this as a podcast. To people listening to this on Tuesday morning, hi Tuesday people. Our commentary will be available as Tracks from the Edge on Wednesday. We'll discuss your feedback with Postcards on the Edge. Wow. Postcards from the Edge on Thursday.
Which I'll be on.
Which you will be on. And yes. And of course, you can catch the full and complete analysis of the episode of Discovery on the Edge main show on Friday. But then that is not all. To wrap up the week, we will also have Notes from the Edge on Saturday for links between Discovery and the broader franchise. So you will find all of these in the main feed for the Edge and in the Trek FM master feed. So if you're already subscribed to the Edge, you're going to get all of these showing up in your feed. Or if you're subscribed to the Trek master feed, Trek FM master feed, which I am, and good Lord, I cannot keep up. So much Star Trek. So we want to hear your thoughts on Discovery, and the best place to do that is the Babel Conference, which is our listeners group on Facebook. And Amy Nelson will collect your feedback for Postcards from the Edge. You can also find us on Twitter at Trek FM or send us an email using the contact form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and choose the Edge. That will come to us. And we'd also like to thank our associate producers, which are Norman Selau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Paleo, Lisa Slack, and Shoaib Mirza. And if you'd like to keep all of our shows going, help us out by becoming an AP even. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM for all the details. I mean, even if you just gave $1, that makes a massive difference that you would not believe. So please join us for so much Discovery coverage. We've got it all.
That's a lot.
We're very excited. Very excited.
Yes. So once again, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure to talk with you again since we got cut short the first time because of my
I was sad
Transformer issue. Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next week when we discuss episode 4 of Discovery. Yes. So we'll see you then. See ya.
Bye, kitty kitties.
Bye.
Kitty,
bye.
kitty, kitty.